a pilot's license than a plain license. Yeah.
Okay, today we're going to start the Masar and Asibifnim. We really stopped in the middle of a piece yesterday. It's the second line of the wide lines on Tzadik Beis and Mid Beis. You have a traditional Gemara. There's a wide line. The top lines are skinny, then it gets wider. So the second line down is the Masar and Asibifnim. We take Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. In this course of our learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash.
Amen.
Okay.
We have that.
Yeah, but the Torah doesn't change. So, I'm sorry? Oh, just the time will change, yeah. And we'll have a more consistent time. So again, tomorrow we'll go back to 5:30 till the yeshiva moves and I can be able to put this out. I tried.
So tomorrow it's 5:30.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a machlekes over here between Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda regarding which two karbanas required smicha, which two karbanas tzibur, which two chatas, right, required smicha. Kol karbanas ain't. It's not just the chatas. Any karban tzibur doesn't have smicha except for two. Now, Reb Shimon's view was that it was the called par helem davar, the bull that was brought if the Sanhedrin made a mistake. That it says clearly in the Torah, samchu ziknei eda, that the elders would lean their hands on it. That's clear. That there's no question about that one. And the second one was the sar of avodah zarah. If the Sanhedrin made a mistake about avodah zarah, about what's allowed and what's not allowed, and the people followed that, so they would do a karban as well. That was a goat. So there was a bull, and a goat that there was smicha. That was the opinion of Reb Shimon.
That one be under the category first.
Different karban. Then there's the opinion of Reb Yehuda. Reb Yehuda says that the par helm davar, of course, that says clearly in the Torah. The second one was the sor of Azazel, the goat that was pushed off Azazel. And yesterday we explained the machlekes. Machlekes was, since smicha needs to be done by the owners, and who was the owner of the sar of Azazel? Rabbi Yehuda says it was all of Israel, including the Kayanim. So therefore, the Kayanim, the Kayan Gadol could lean on it. That would be done. Rabbi Shimon said that it wasn't, that the sar of Azazel was not for the Kayanim. Therefore, the Kayan Gadol wasn't the owner. So therefore, that smicha isn't counted. Now the Gemara says, where did Reb Shimon know that it's the sar of avodah zarah? So we quoted a brisa that says, by the sa'ir of a king, if a nasi, a king, doesn't have avera, he has to do smicha on it. So it says over there, v'samach yadei al reish hasar. Reb Shimon learns from that. Why do you have to say al reish hasar? You say v'samach yadei al reishai. Why do you say al sa'ir? You have to say again a goat. Say again. It's coming to include another goat. Which goat is that? The goat of avodah zarah. Gemara now asks, that's where we're holding right now. How do you know it's the goat of avodah zarah, which is a private goat, that's brought because it's a king. It's not public. It's private. Maybe it's talking about the goat that's brought by the Kayanim by the Kayan Gadol on Yom Kippur, not the one that's pushed off the cliff. The other one that's the mate. I'm not sure. I just know it's not counted as smicha. To look if it says clearly in the pasuk. Maybe it says clear, but he says it's not counted. So ve'imasar nasi bifnim. How do you know that this is the sa'ir of avodah zarah, which Reb Shimon holds? Maybe it's the sa'ir of Yom Kippur. The Gemara answers, Dumya desar nasi the mechaper al averis mitzvah sidua. So we want to do a comparison. We know that where are we learning this from? We're excluding it from the sar of the nasi. king does an aver, he has to bring a special chatas, not like a typical chatas. Not everyone does an aver, they bring a chatas. It's a female sheep. He has to bring a male goat. It's different carbon. So, what would be a carbon that's similar to that? Would be another chatas that was coming for a specific sin. The goat that comes on Yom Kippur is coming for a sin that was not known. The person was tummy. He knew originally he was tummy, and then he forgot that he was tummy, and he entered into the temple or something. So it's an atonement for those type of tumas where the person doesn't know that he did the avera. He says that's not comparable to the one we're talking about. We're talking about a person knows the avera, so therefore we'll compare it also to the sar of Aveda Zara, where the person where they know that there was an avera. Okay. Al averis mitzvah yidua. Now the Gemara asks, "Ravina da'amar gemir shteis smiches betzibar kroi lamali." According to Ravina, this is a question on Reb Shimon, because we have a tradition that there's only two karbanas tzibar that you need to do smicha on. Only two community sacrifices we have to lean. The owner, the someone of the community needs to lean on. So, if I know that, and one of them is in the pasuk, then you only have one other option, which is the sar of Aveda Zara, where the community sinned with Aveda Zara. So you can't say it's talking about the goat that was pushed off the cliff, because Reb Shimon held that the Kayin Gadol isn't the owner. So you can't say that that's the smicha. So there's only one option. So why do we need the psukim to tell me which one it is? So the Gemara says, I need the psukim, and I also need the tradition. The hilchasa means the halach l'meishim misina. Dimikra, if we would only have the psukim, havamina zivchei shalmei tzibur, I would have thought that it's really including the zivchei shalmei tzibur, the two lambs that are brought on Shavuos together with the two loaves of bread. And now the Gemara explains. It's very interesting how the Gemara quotes this. It says, "Kikasha masnisin dahach pirka the kolam menachos daf." Like the Gemara asked about a month ago on Daf Samach Beis, I think the Gemara asked that the question in the parak in the chapter of kolam menachos daf over there, Amar Reb Shimon shleish minim tunim shalish mitzvos. It says that there's three types of sacrifices, that each one has 2 out of 3 mitzvahs, and we went through the 3 over there, and one of them was the zivchei shalmei tzibur, and over there the Gemara says, "Leisi b'kal b'chaimer, v'yu zivchei shalmei tzibur tun smicha mikal b'chaimer." We should make a kal b'chaimer that the shalmei tzibur should require smicha. That was one of the 3 things. They had 3 different types of karbanas, and then they had 3 different types of mitzvahs, and it says each one of those 3 has 2 out of the 3. It was a different 2 for each one. And then it says, 1 second, why is this one only 2? This one should really have a 3rd one. It should have smicha. Now, I'll give you a kal b'chaimer. Whereas for a private individual shlamim, which doesn't require waving while it's alive, you only wave the shlamim after only the chazav b'sheik, only the chest after it's slaughtered, of course. But and the zivchei shalmei tzibur, which do require tenu. So if the shalmei yachid, the person's private peace offering, doesn't need to be waved, but nevertheless it needs smicha. So the shalmei tzibur, which do need to be waved when they're alive, for sure should require smicha. Well, you got to get into the thing. Remember that the kal v'chaimer. If I'm not allowed to, if I'm allowed to put my hand into my wallet and take out money, but you're not. But you're not allowed to put the hand in my. But so if your wallet, which you're allowed to put, for sure I should be allowed. See, I have some more.
Yeah,
so
what's
the logic? So it has to do with if there's a connection, waving it is it's like a stringency of some sort. So it's I know you can get into that. You have to get into
it. Which might be a practice. You can't wave a lamb, but you can wave a handful of flour.
So the Shalmei Tzibur, forget what age they were, but okay. But they are waving the Shalmei Tzibur. They're waving it while it's alive. The question is, do they have to do smicha on it? So he's saying that this one that doesn't have so many.
Maybe it's either or. Maybe you have to do either smicha or waving. So this one needed waving. This one needed smicha.
Right. Anyway, whatever the case is, that's what the Gemara. We're quoting the Gemara from in that back over there. Now, since over there the Gemara had a svara that we should require smicha, so then we would say like this: that if we only had the psukim and we had to include one of the karbanas based on that Gemara over there, where there was such a logic that we would end up with having smicha on the Shalmei Tzibur, on the karbanas of Shavuos. Nitzrich Hilchasa. The halacha tells me, so that's why I need it. So that's why I need to tell me that there's only two, not three. I wouldn't end up with the Shalmei Tzibur. Imi hilchasa, if I only had the halacha that says it's two, then la yadin and haininu. I wouldn't have known which one it is. Could have thought. I could have thought it's maybe the zivchei Shalmei, yeah, I guess that's what I would have thought. No, I wouldn't have known if it's the Par Helam Davar. The Par Helam Davar I know from a pasuk. I wouldn't have known it's the Sar of Avodah Zarah, or if it's the Sar of the goat of Yom Kippur. That's what I wouldn't have known. So that's why I need the psukim. Kamashmal Dumi the Sar Nasi the Mechaper Alaveshi. That's why I need the psukim, because I need to compare it to the Sar of the Nasi. So I need the psukim, which told me V'samach Yad Arish Asar. Yeah. They don't have another offering that's made up by Reb Shimon. The other offering that the Kohanim have covers not only the Averis that Reb Shimon thought that Rabbi Yehuda thinks it covers, but Reb Shimon adds other Averis in there that it covers those other Averis. Yeah.
We don't do sins. We don't need it.
You follow? There's another carbon that's being brought. the par is being brought for the Kohanim. What Averis is being brought for? But if they contaminated the temple, that's it. According to Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Shimon, no, it's going to for all Averis. Rabbi Yehuda says the all Averis that goes under the part the sar the goat that's being pushed off. Rabbi Shimon says, yeah, all Averis, but not for the Kohanim. The Kohanim already satisfied it with the other. So then you follow the. Okay, now it says Kol Kabanas Yachid Smicha Chutz Min B'char Meiser Pesach. It's a slightly easier Gemara here. We said that private sacrifice, personal sacrifices, are required smicha, except for three exceptions: Char Meiser and Pesach, a firstborn animal, a tithed animal, and a paschal sacrifice. Tanur Rabbanan started in a brisa. Karbanai. It says three times in the beginning of Sefer Vayikra. It says Karbanai, his karban, talking about the smicha. Karbanai v'loy ba'bechar. It says his karban, coming to exclude something. It says his karban or this karban. Karbanai his karban v'loy b'char, but not the firstborn. Sheyachal, because I could have thought v'loy dinu. It should have been included. In other words, why do I need the exclusion from the pasuk? Whoever said that a bechar should be included. So it says no. I could have thought that it should be included because it's logical. Mashlam shen kedushasim mirechem tan smicha. By a shlamim that doesn't have. That's not holy from birth, but nevertheless, it has extra laws. You have to do smicha. So, b'char shek t'shasim mirechem, any din shatan smicha. A b'char, firstborn, it's holy for sure. It should have even more laws. It should have smicha. It's holy from birth. Since I could have thought that was logical, so I need a pasuk to tell me that you actually don't do smicha. Karbanai v'lay meiser. It's his karban. This is the second one. But not a tithe, sheyachal, because I could have thought a tithe should require smicha. I didn't know. Mashlam shem mekatchen lifnei malach reim tun smicha a shlamim, which doesn't have this interesting law where if you make a mistake and you say the one before it should be the 10th, and the one after it is the 10th, the 9th and the 11th, the 10th. Doesn't have that law. It's just the one that you consecrate is consecrated, and everything else is not. Nevertheless, you have to do smicha. So the tithe animal, which has this interesting halacha that if the person's counting and he makes a mistake, in the 9th he says the 10th, in the 10th he says the 10th, in the 11th he says the 10th. So then they all have a status of a karban. In addition to smicha, for sure it should require smicha. Malaymar karbanai v'lei meiser. Karbanai and not meiser. Karbanai v'lei pesach. It says his sacrifice, but not the karban pesach. You don't have to do smicha on it. Shecha v'lei dinu. I could have thought that umash lam sheina b'amid v'havi. Tan smicha pesach shau b'amid v'havi and addition to smicha. Now let me see how they translate amid v'havi. Stand up and bring it. Now, you know what? They don't even add anything. C29. Every Jew is required to bring the Pesach offering, and that way its sanctification is stronger than that of Islam. I guess it means that it's an obligation on every person. That's what it means. As opposed to Islam, which is a voluntary donation. So if this is every person is obligated to bring it, and it should for sure require smicha. The Gemara says, "Karban v'lei Pesach." You don't like these kal v'chomer. Okay. Ikal mifrach. The Gemara says maybe all these kal v'chomers are not good because mal shlamim they're all being learned from shlamim. Shlamim is like this, and the other ones seem to be more stricter. So if it's more stricter, then for sure it should have. So it's like sometimes people see. When it comes to chumras, people say, like, I don't understand. You have a beard. Why don't you keep yashan? So I don't have a beard and I keep yashan. No. You know what I'm saying? All right, whatever.
That's so bad.
Okay. Mal Islam shkein in the sachim tenufa chasav v'sheikut. So 1 second. The shlamim is stricter than all of those, and that's why it requires smicha. Why do I need this pasuk to tell me that those other ones don't have smicha? The shlamim has a strictness that it requires nisachim. The other ones don't require nisachim, the libations, the bechar meiser and pesach, and you have to wave the chest and the thigh on the shlamim. You don't have to wave anything on the other ones. So the Gemara says, "You're right. You know what? Kroyas machta balma." The psukim don't really teach me that. The psukim, it was just we were just kidding, but we were quoting those psukim just to help you remember these 3 laws. People remembered psukim, so we would have a smachta that we would rely on the psukim. But lahavdil, my poor Aunt Sally, something, remember, like they did like something like that to remember like different things. So they would associate things with psukim so that you should remember those halachas. Roy G. Biv.
When you make it.
Yeah. Okay. Every good boy deserves one.
You should
Favorite.
You should
Remember, like when you're 8 years old,
You should hear Jeff on the
It says if the psukim aren't really teaching me these halachas, it's just asmachta, so kroi lamali. So what are they teaching us? The Gemara says, that you do smicha only on your own karban. But if you're a shliach for someone else to bring his karban, then you don't do smicha. It's a very interesting statement there. The Gemara Chagiga has. This is actually a machlekes, I think. The first machlekes in history was, I think, machlekes about smicha. if I remember where it was, but it was Machlekes that went down like 6 generations. Yosef ben Yozer Shloila Smich Yom Tov. Do you do smich on Yom Tov? Oh, that was the question. Do you do smich on Yom Tov? So if based on this, there was a writer, famous Arya Frankel.
Victor Frankl?
Actually, I don't know. Possible. He was probably German, Austrian as well. So anyway, he wrote about the history of the Mishnayos and the history of the Yerushalmi. So writer. Shamshon Raphael Hirsch was hated him, not hated him like personally, but he wrote against him like he felt that he was like a reformer type. But anyway, he wrote these things. And one of the things that he wrote was that Reb Shamshon Rosh could smell like if there's if someone has like some like the wrong ideas. Anyway, so he wrote that there's this interesting Mishnah in Chagiga that goes through the 5-6 generations of do you have to do smicha on Yom Tov? Do you not do smicha on Yom Tov? Back and forth. Every generation they argued about it again. So he says since he explains why this was such a serious thing. He says since people didn't live in Eretz Yisrael, so if they had to do smicha, then they had to bring their own carbon. That means everyone had to travel back to Eretz Yisrael to bring their carbon. Because since it says carbon evle carbon chaveira, that you're not allowed to do smicha on someone else. You can't just send your carbon with someone else because you have to do smicha, and you can't do smicha if you're not there, right? It can't be. It has to be the one that's bringing it.
But why only travel to the Maseches for the
Only if you were within 15. Whatever. If you were out of the area, you didn't have to go. But what about your carbon? So there was a machlekes between these. Should we require everyone to show up because they have to do the smicha? It was sort of like a
Shliach wouldn't work?
Shliach would work, except we just said carbon evle carbon chaveira. You can't do smicha on someone else's carbon.
They translate as I always read in this research.
No, we're not holding there yet. Then that's the next one. Karbana evle karbana v'techavim. His sacrifice, but not the carbon of someone else, of an idolater, right? Karbanai, and then it says Karbanai l'rabis kol bali carbon l'smicha. This we exclude and then we include. We exclude your friend's carbon, but when we exclude carbon that's coming from an idolater that you're bringing, there's no smicha on that. But we include if there's partners in a carbon, so that each one could do smicha. Yeah, it doesn't have to be personally owned. It's even if it's jointly owned, still you can still do smicha on it.
And they both have to do one.
I'm not sure. It doesn't tell me over here if it means both or if it just means that one could do it. Rashi says in Erechin, Taisus quotes, that one does it for everyone. Rashi says somewhere else that no one does it. How does that fit with our Gemara?
Like before, that Rosh said that they wouldn't sleep on this cousin. And he said that the elders.
No, Azazel was the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol.
One of them said that.
One of them said, Reb Shimon said that it wasn't considered smicha because he wasn't the owner, because he wasn't the one that was being atoned by it. Right? Okay, next Gemara says, Hayoyrish Saimech. If someone inherits a sacrifice, so he does smicha. How does he inherit a sacrifice? His father was supposed to give a sacrifice, he passed away. His son is going to bring it, so that he could do smicha for his father. We just said before, carbon evle carbon chaveira. You're not allowed to do smicha on someone else's carbon. Here we say, but that's only if it's someone else. But if he's an inheritor, he does it. Like the commentaries say that the inheritor, it's not that it changes hands, but the position of the inheritor steps into those other shoes. Not that the property moves, it's the owner that moves to the other position. Okay. I don't remember, but you remember the context?
you mentioned that the inheritor would.
Oh yeah. We're quoting the Mishnah that we learned 2 days ago. So yeah, this quote we said. Tani Rab Chananya Kamei de Rava. Hanania says the name of Rava, or says not the name, in front of Rava. Yerush Eina Seimach, an inheritor doesn't do smicha. Yerush Eina Meimer, an inheritor can't do Tamura. Says 1 second. Vanantanani Yerush Seimach. Well, maybe it's Nasach of a Meimar. What's the, you contradicting our Mishnah? Our Mishnah says exactly the opposite. Amarle, so he says, okay, Ibchai. I'll switch it around. Amalei, loy. No, there's a Bach here that switches this. Bach says, loy tzricha. It's not necessary to change what you said around. You don't have to flip it. What you could say is, Masnisin Mani, who's the author of our Mishnah? Rabbi Yehudi. It's actually a different opinion. The Tanya, Yerush Semech Yerush Meimar. We have a brisa that says that Yerush, an inheritor, does smicha, and Yerush also could do Tamura. He exchanges one sacrifice for another. Not he's allowed to, but if he does, it works, right? Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says Yerush Eina Saimech, Yerush Eina Meimar. So, don't worry. Your opinion, what you quoted, your brisa was actually Rabbi Yehuda. My time with Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda? Gemara says Karbana v'lei Karban Aleph, v'lei Karban Aviv. It says Karbanai. We learned before. Karbanai told me, and not his friend's Karban. Karbanai and not Avodah Zarah. It says 3 times Karbanai. And then it says Karbanai that to include everyone, all the owners are each owner is allowed to do smicha. What are we going to do over here when it says, Rabbi Yehuda says that Karbanai is coming to teach me that he can't do smicha on his father's Karban? We already used up the 3 Karbanais. We don't have one left. The Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda explains, V'yalef tchilas hekdesh mi-seif hekdesh. We're going to start with seif hekdesh, and then we're going to go back to tchilas hekdesh. Seif hekdesh means the way it's offered. Tchilas hekdesh means the way it's consecrated. Mas seif hekdesh yerush and seimach, just like by seif hekdesh. The way it's offered. The inheritor can't do smicha. Af tchilas hekdesh yerush and meimer. Also, when it comes to the way it's consecrated, is that just like the Yerush is no good, the Yerush is ineffective. When it comes to the smicha, the way it's offered, you go back to the way that it's being consecrated, and he can't do Tamura, he can't make another sacrifice consecrated off this one. The Rabbanan say, Hamar Yamir, he should surely, he will exchange one sacrifice for another, and that's L'Rabba, he says, Yerush, to include him, that he can do Tamura. We can do Tamura, and now we say the Aleph Seif Hekdesh Mitchilas Hekdesh. We'll learn Smicha from Tamura. It says Ma Tchilas Hekdesh, just like where the way Hekdesh begins, the way consecration begins. Yerush Meimer, the inheritor is allowed to do Tamura. Not is allowed, but is capable of. Af Seif Hekdesh Yerush Seimech. Also Seif Hekdesh, the Yerush. Also, when it comes to the way it's offered, the inheritor can do smicha.
Isn't more by nature something you're not allowed to do?
Yeah.
It's not allowed to do.
Yeah. You're not allowed to do it. I'm saying not allowed. I don't mean allowed. I mean it works.
It doesn't work. It works.
It works means that the animal that it's exchanged for becomes kodesh as well. That only works because he's either an owner or this. If someone else comes along,
come in to say you're,
and
it wouldn't make
it wouldn't do anything. But it's effective. Is the
that's the benefit of a right wing upbringing.
Okay.
Okay. You show up tomorrow? Oh boy, at 5:30.
You know what? Yitzi needs a 3D printer.
Oh,
You get trophies and
Jeff, put on the list.
trophies. You can make keys. You can do all types of stuff.
Yeah, put on the list. We got a list going on.
Okay.
Things I need.
The school that my kids go to, they have a 3D printer, and the kids come home with all these little gadgets, little thing and they get these prizes.
You don't even have to do whack-a-mole or skee ball anymore.
Right.
Spider ring.
Rabbanan. Rabbanan, hi karbanim mayavtile. What are the Rabbanan going to do with karbanai if Rabbi Yehuda says that the word karbanai is coming to his sacrifice and not someone else's, is coming to tell me that he has to do smicha on his own but not his father's? So what the Rabbanan do? They say that he is allowed to do smicha on his father. Karbanai v'leiv kechavim, karbanai v'lei karban chaver, karbanai rabbis kol bali karban smicha. We have an answer to that. We learned before that karbanai is coming to teach me three other things. Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbis kol bali karban l'smicha leslie. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold that. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold that all partners are allowed to do smicha. So he drops one. You drop one, and then you have a space for this other one that Yerush doesn't do smicha. Binami islay. Maybe he does hold of it, that all partners are allowed to do the smicha. However, and then what happens is I what it'll do is like this. We said that there's three karbanos. One of them tells me, according to the Rabbanan, you can't have to do smicha on your own karban, not your friend's karban. Another one is they have to do smicha on your own karban and not a karban of a non-Jew. Another one is smicha on that any partner is allowed to do smicha. Comes along Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to do smicha on your own karban and not your friend's karban or a non-Jew's karban. None of them are your own karban. Mm-hmm. So they can put those two together. If you used one karbanite to tell me your friend and the non-Jew, put your friend and the non-Jew in the same limud, and then you'll have one left over. What are you going to do with the extra one? That you have to do smicha on your own karban and not on your father's karban. That's what Rabbi Yehuda would say. Okay. And then he would be able to hold that any partner is allowed to do smicha. Rabbi Yehuda, hi Hamar Yamer, my Yavidlai. This is an interesting question because according to the Rabbanan, they said that since a Yairish is allowed to do Tmura, therefore he's allowed to do Smicha. Rabbi Yehuda that said that he's not allowed to do Smicha, therefore he's not allowed to do Tmura. So the verse that the Rabbanan used to teach me that he's allowed to do Tmura, what's Rabbi Yehuda going to use? He obviously doesn't hold that he could do Tmura. He needs it to tell me that a woman can do Tmura. The Tanya, start in a brisa. It says over there in the pasuk, it says it says he shall not. So it's what about a woman? Is a woman allowed to, or is it effective? So it says how will we in the end include a woman? We have this extra pasuk that says that even that it should surely not. It will surely be exchanged. It's coming to tell me that extra word is coming to tell me that a woman can do tmura. Rabbanan darshim mivim. Now the Rabbanan that already used Hamar Yamer to tell me that a inheritor is allowed to do smicha on his father's karban, is allowed to do tmura, not allowed, but his tmura is effective on his father's karban. So how's he going to know about a woman? It says darshim mivim. Says and if that extra and they'll dash. Rabbi Yehuda v'im lei darish. This is classic, where we get the drushes down to like one letter, and one opinion holds. Well, that's enough to teach it to me. The other one says, oh, that's too small. We don't dash from there. Okay. Hakol simchen. Everyone could do smicha. Chutz mecher sheita v'katan v'suma v'kechavim. Eved v'ashliach v'yisha. Do smicha shiari mitzvah. Okay, so anyone can do smicha, except for the following. We have a list of a cheirish sheita v'katan. That's 1, 2, 3. A cheirish is someone that's deaf. A sheita is an imbecile, and a katan is a minor. They can't do smicha. Suma is someone that's blind. Eved kechavim is a non-Jew. Eved is a slave. Shliach. We learned before, shliach, you can't have a messenger, holding by 7. Isha is 8. A woman can't do smicha. A woman can do tmura. We didn't say she can do smicha. Smicha shiari kashari mitzvah. Smicha is not ma'akiv. It doesn't. This is a kasha on Zachariah Frankel's pshat, because smicha is not ma'akiv. So let them send the thing anyway with someone else, and they didn't do smicha. This is like a lousy tactic. Zachariah Frankel thinks that the requirement to do smicha on Yom Tov was a tactic to be able to get everyone to come to the base. To get everyone in there, and then there was a thing that says. But anyway, it's a lousy tactic because they can send it for without they're still Yitzhak.
Naftali Lowenstein is not on.
No.
He would.
He probably has the book.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, actually, he actually gave me the book.
Of course. Every book in the Library of Congress.
He actually gave me the book. Yeah.
Authors send him the copy and the Library of Congress.
Okay. Alaroish bebeis yadayim. Smicha is done on the head with two hands. Makim sheseich seimchen sheichte. The place where you lean, that's where you do the shchita. And then we have this famous Gemara, Teikef l'smicha shchita. Immediately after the smicha is the shchita. Gemara quotes Shalish Tkifais. There's three things the Gemara quotes. Three things that are immediate. One is Teikef l'netila bracha or something. Right after Mayim Achreinim, you have to bench. One is Teikef l'smicha shchita, and then there was another Teikef. Anyway, okay.
The place where the shape happening on the neck.
Yeah. And that same location where you lean on the neck.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so head, so picturing neck.
Yeah. Oh no, maybe not. Maybe makim doesn't mean the place on the body. Maybe the makim means that you don't move the animal. That could make that could fit. You don't move the animal.
Yeah, it's weird if they grab the animal by the neck.
Why?
I don't know, because it's like they're choking the animal. And it says you have to put like your weight on it. Like it makes. I always picture like they put their hands on the head of the animal.
Why is that better than putting a weight on the neck? You put
Because
the weight on the head,
because the neck,
push it down
you
to
would
the
have to
floor.
grab it like this.
No,
No,
to lean with your full force.
No, they would put the weight on it. 1 second. The head? What's the problem? You put your head on the hands on the head. You put your hands on the neck. What's the difference?
but I guess you would have to hold it sideways. So
Why? You put down the neck has a back to it. No. Whichever. It does say al roish. It says on the head, so you're probably right. I'm just saying that. Okay, so now you're probably right. You put it on the head. Makim shesayim probably means the same place of the base of Migdash where you do it. Maybe not. It doesn't mean the same place of the animal. Let me see what the commentary says. The same place in the base of Migdash, right? The Gemara says, I understand why the Cheir Sheit V'Katan aren't allowed to do smicha, because they don't have the knowledge. Smicha probably requires some sort of knowledge. Okay, I can understand that one as well. That a non-Jew can't, because it says the word Bnei Yisrael in the pasuk. So okay, so not a non-Jew. What's the reason why a blind person can't do smicha? Rav Chisda, Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi, it's machlekes. Chisda and Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. Chad Amar, one says asya smicha miziknei Eida. One says we're going to learn it from. It says ziknei Eida. And ziknei Eida, the elders of the congregation, were not blind. Chad Amar asya smicha me'elas riyah. The other one says we're going to learn it from Eilas Riyah, which is the sacrifice that you have to bring when he comes to the temple. Now, who has to come to the temple? Only people that weren't blind. People that were blind are exempt from coming to the temple. Why? Because it says Yerah, you should be seen, right? Yerah, 3 times a year you should be seen, and which means that just like you come to see, so someone that doesn't come to that can't see is exempt. So a blind person. Okay, let's take a look. The one that says that we learn that a blind person doesn't do smicha, we learned it from Eilas Riyah, from the sacrifice that's brought when someone goes to the temple on the holiday. My time Alf min ziknei Eida. Why doesn't he learn it from the other way, from the elders of the congregation? It's done in Yachid Miyachid, being done in Yachid Mitzi, but the elders of the congregation is a community sacrifice, right? That was the sacrifice of the when the people did an avera, the whole congregation did an avera. That's a good teretz. Why doesn't the other one, the one that learned from the elders of the congregation, why doesn't he learn from Eilas Riyah? It seems that would be a better limud. Both of them tell me that a blind person doesn't do smicha. It says, "Danen midi deksiv be smicha begufei, mimidi deksiv be smicha beguf, mimidi deksiv be smicha begufei." Afakeilas Riyah the higufa me'elas nedava gamra. He says like this, that I want to learn that there's smicha is required by someone that has vision from something else that it clearly says smicha is required. But if I'm going to learn it from Eilas Riyah, so which requires vision, but it doesn't say clearly by Eilas Riyah that smicha is required. I learned the requirement of smicha by Eilas Riyah from a nedava, from a regular Eilah, not the obligation Eilah when you go to the temple you can't come empty-handed. Learn from another one. So because it's an extension of something else, so I'd rather learn from the origin. Tana Kamid Rabitzk Baraba, it says Vayakev es Eilah vayaseh kamishpat. It says he will bring the Eilah and will do it according to the law. Kamishmat Eilas Nedava, like the law of the Eilas Nedava. Limit Eilas Chayva Shetuna Smicha. I learned from an Eilas Nedava, which is a donation burnt offering. I learned to obligation burnt offerings that they also require. Now we're learning that the obligation burnt offering needs to be someone with vision, but that's already an extension. So therefore, we thought it would be better to learn from Ziknei Aida, even though that's community. And I'll do just one more piece. Okay, let's leave it over here. Holding by okay. We're you see where we're holding slave shliach and a woman on 93.
So tomorrow at 5:30.
It's tomorrow 5:30. We got Chodesh.
I'm not coming back anymore.
Okay, good Chodesh.
Okay. Have a good day, everyone.
Give the warnings. You try.